Today on the Liberty Blue Table sessions, we talk about work life, finding the balance between profit and purpose. Now, for many of us, we grow up being encouraged to live our lives to our fullest potential and pursue our purpose. That's if you're lucky enough to find it and know what it truly is. But at the same time, given that life is made up of choices, options, and dynamics that are all financially led, you also need to make sure that you look after your pocket first in terms of pursuing a kind of profit that you're able to derive from your productivity. But where is the sweet spot? Where do we find an opportunity to identify where these two themes interlink and, most importantly, then translate into the actions that you're able to pursue for your life? Well, that's why we're having these conversations here today on the Liberty Blue Table sessions, where we're going to speak to a myriad of individuals with very different backgrounds, very different careers, but ultimately who share something in common in terms of their journeys. And this commonality speaks to why we host these conversations, to show you that you're never really alone, but someone is always in it with you. My first guest today will give us a brief introduction to who he is and also remind us as to when last he felt truly supported, that someone was in it with him, is a familiar face to those who know all about the world of quality culinary experiences. Chef Wandi, we look forward to your contribution to the conversation today, but give us a little bit more insight into what you do and, most importantly, when last you truly felt that someone was in it with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Chef Wandi, and I'm a professional chef, restaurateur, and owner of Les Créatifs restaurant in Johannesburg. And we inspire people and change people's lives through culinary experiences. The time where I felt someone was in it with me is this current moment in COVID, where I've had my sous chef who had left his job and joined me as an entrepreneur to open up this restaurant. And through all the hard times, he stuck with me, including this time of COVID, where it's easy just to let go and call it quits. So I feel like he's really in it with me.
Quite right. The journey of all entrepreneurs is one to be respected. It requires a lot of grit, a lot of chutzpah, and ongoing encouragement and support. And someone who knows all about the importance of support and providing that kind of support to many other young entrepreneurs and individuals within their social spaces is a activist for social entrepreneurship herself. She's a speaker as well as an author, Ntsiki Mkhize, who joins us to contribute to this conversation today. Ntsiki, tell us a little bit more about yourself and when last you truly felt that someone was in it with you.
Sanbonani. I am currently full-time Masters in Social Innovation student. I'm the author of My Hall of Mentors, and I recently launched a business called Mentor, which is focused on supporting and empowering female social entrepreneurs. And a time when I felt that somebody was truly in it with me must be my parents. Throughout my life, but specifically now as I've been carving out my career as an entrepreneur and leaving formal employment and so forth, it's really great to have somebody to give you free rein.
You're quite right. It's all about a journey and ongoing partnership that's required. And someone who's witnessed individuals change in their journeys of witnessing their interaction with finances is a representative of Liberty who has long observed these changes within the financial services industry. Lisa Hovgaard, who joins us now to give us some insight. Lisa, aside from being the corporate climbing ladder girl that you are, you're certainly someone as well with a family experience, family background, and even had your own interactions with money that have given you a real wake-up call. But aside from that, when last did you also feel that someone was truly in it with you?
Hi, I'm Lisa Hovgaard, and I'm an executive at Liberty in charge of change, communication, and marketing, trade marketing to be exact. And really, I love working out what makes people tick and how we can help people connect with what we do. An example of when I felt really supported and that somebody was in it with you was when my husband, my then boyfriend, had a conversation with me once I'd been retrenched and took our joint expenses, took his salary, cut what was left over after all of our expenses in half, and told me that the rest was our spending money. And I just at that moment felt so supported and that somebody was actually truly in it with me.
Well, we've set the tone in terms of the experience and the background of our various speakers. I'm looking forward to this conversation, so let's get ready to deep dive into our Liberty Blue Table session. I do want to get some perspective from many of our guests as to what COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown has meant to their businesses. It's a theme and an element that we cannot ignore, as it's really had an overriding impact on the first half of 2020. And Chef Wandi, top of mind, I can imagine what COVID-19 has done to your business, made you rethink and reevaluate your profit streams, and maybe even made you sit back and question your purpose, that if providing individuals with a culinary experience is still something that you want to do. But how have you translated and viewed and responded to the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown, both in your professional and personal life?
Well, I can safely tell you that the culinary industry, or the passion for culinary, will always be there regardless of COVID. But however, yes, the restaurant industry got hit pretty hard, together with the tourism industry and hospitality. And for me in the business, it really was about adapting to change and not being afraid to change. So during the COVID era, when different levels were changing and restrictions were put on, we were literally behaving like chameleons. I had to be a chameleon. I had to look at my surroundings, see opportunities, and see where I change and adapt. I mean, to a point where we've changed our website literally 4 times to suit the different levels that we've been on. And luckily, all the pursuits have been successful, hence why we are still here, and we are still changing as we go, because we're still stuck in this situation. But most importantly, I think it's about mental health. For me, that was the first thing, because I do believe this will pass one day. So the mental health is the one thing. And what I did was I got all my staff back into the kitchen, all 20 of them, front of house and back of house. And I mentioned to them that I cannot pay you a salary, but I will give everybody an allowance and food packs every week, just for you to survive. And you come back to work, and even though there's not much business, we keep working, we're shooting content, we're creating menus. And what this does, it keeps them moving, it keeps them working, and it helps the mental health, you know. So when we do actually get back to normal, the guys are ready to go in.
It's amazing that you've taken that approach, Chef Wandi, and I want to stick with you for just a moment, because what it seems that you're doing is actually speaking to the purpose of your staff members. Has that been a new mind shift change? And am I on the right track in terms of saying that it's your passion and it's your purpose that allows all of you to continue to keep the machine moving as actively as you are, even though there's limited revenue streams?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that is why in the industry, we always say passion comes first, because if you have passion and a vision, you know, and if it's really real, it's not just about the money, it's not about the fame, it's not about the popularity, it's literally about the passion. That is the only thing that will save you through the hard times, because you will come across hard times in any industry, and the only thing that will save you is because you are in it, because you love it. And I believe that my purpose is to obviously serve people, because I believe a chef is actually an interpreter between nature and human beings. And we are here to translate what nature has given us to human beings. And that's what we'll forever do, besides the TV, besides the celebrity chef and the restaurants. That is our core business.
Translating nature. It's beautiful how you've described your passion and your purpose so succinctly. Ntsiki, I'm curious, what's your passion? What's your purpose? What keeps you fueled? And how have you been able to identify this even during these uncertain times of COVID-19?
Yeah, I think for me personally, passion and purpose are a big thing. And Wandile is right. You know, the passion always has to be there, especially when you're an entrepreneur and your income is based on you and you are having to be a self-starter and go out there and make things happen. For me, purpose really lies strongly in being able to inspire, connect, and empower women. I think women are arguably the best at a lot of things, but in South Africa in particular are really the center of our households. If you look at the charity sector or the third sector, a lot of the organizations that run there formally or informally are run by women. And if all of those organizations had to disappear overnight, our country would be, I mean, I don't even want to think about what that state would look like. And so for me, it's really important to empower those women to be able to create some kind of financial stream that can support their organization because a lot of the grant funding and so forth is running out, and also helping them to figure out how do I change what I do into a social enterprise and be able to meet social needs as well as the profit aspect to keep running in my business. And that's what I'm passionate about as an entrepreneur, but that's also what I'm passionate about, and equipping others to be able to do the same.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Ntsiki, and I want to stay with you on this topic as well to expand further as to what social entrepreneurship is about. For many, it might come across as being an oxymoron. How do the two even begin to coexist together? But in terms of passion and purpose, how is it that you enable people and the many women that you mentor to find that sweet spot and make sure that they can have a symbiotic relationship?
Sure. So, I mean, within the discourse, there's still a debate about what social entrepreneurship is, because traditional business and traditional capitalism doesn't think you can earn money, or you should be earning money when you're doing socially impactful things. But it's really looking at the business model and the business system and saying, how do we create something sustainable, something that can generate income while meeting a particular socioeconomic challenge? And you need that because people tend to chase the money. So we've seen now with COVID as well, a lot of resources have been directed to COVID relief, which is necessary. But what you also find in that is a lot of businesses or organizations respond by changing their motivation towards that as well. So the initial projects sort of get left behind, so a social enterprise should be able to pursue a social initiative and address that particular socioeconomic challenge, but find a way within their business as well to generate income. And ideally, the end game is that you're sustainable enough to get rid of the issue and elevate to a new level in business.
I'm intrigued by that, and it's definitely a theme that we want to come back to in terms of understanding how you mentor these streams of young women to identify these opportunities. But Lisa, I'm intrigued to come to you. You are someone who has monitored and witnessed the change of how human beings, and maybe even more particularly so women, interact with money and how their relationship with money influences their relationships and the roles they serve within other spaces. But how have you personally, as someone who works within a corporate entity in South Africa, found that interlink between your passion and your purpose while still deriving a profit for yourself?
So I think, I've really been lucky in that I don't think I've ever had to really look for a job or actively had to sort of pursue the money aspects, because I've been so very busy pursuing the passion, and the money seems to have followed behind. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. The problem is, obviously, once the money starts coming, to actually make sure that it actually works for you properly. And I think the passion that I feel around the sort of financial services industry and the freedom that money brings, or having money, or not really having money, but having enough to do what you need to do, is really where my heart is. And in terms of what it is that I do every day, it's really about it, particularly in COVID. I've really started to understand how that, the old adage is a problem shared is a problem halved, and how a financial advisor, a really good financial advisor, can help you make really good decisions now, particularly in COVID, where people's income is so threatened.
You raise a valid point there, Lisa, and it does speak to what we're seeing as a rising theme. Now, in my day-to-day activities, and even for some of the entities that I'm affiliated with, we've seen ongoing job cuts, we've seen salary cuts, and you're in the wonderful position because you can speak from experience about what you had to endure when you were retrenched at one point. Given that retrenchment is so rife at the moment and these salary cuts, a lot of the times we as human beings are tempted to make very emotional decisions that can lead us to making financial mistakes. How do we need to balance that narrative to make sure that even when the circumstances are dire, we're still making sure that our money works for us?
So I think, there's a very interesting dynamic that humans have, and that is that we try and ignore the problem for as long as we can until the problem comes to bite us. And I think that that's probably the value of a financial advisor, in that they make you do that. But just on your own, actually sitting down and getting to grips with your day-to-day finances and doing the trade-offs are so important. Is it Netflix or is it Mnet? Are you going to spend more money on a car, or are you going to fix what you have? Those kind of things are vitally important. And I think that the second one is around consolidating the cover that you have. A lot of people we know in South Africa are multi-insured, And, you know, that's a problem because you aren't comparing an apple with an apple and you're not sure where the holes are in your cover. So making sure that you've got adequate cover and consolidating that is a good tip. And I think the last one for me is really, you don't know what's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. We are facing economic uncertainty and you need to be building up an emergency fund where you can. And that really means, you know, tightening the old belt, no more shoes. And really, if you've got a job, make sure you get that emergency fund in place. And there's really beautiful, beautiful products out there. Liberty has a product called Stash, which is a really easy to use savings vehicle, which is savings investment vehicle, so you can just build up your funds gradually.
You're quite right. This comes to the difficult part of the conversation where we need to talk about money, right? And money, for some odd reason, is such an uncomfortable theme for many people to talk about, whether in relationships or with their friends, with their family, and even more so in business. But Wandile, I want to come back to a point that you mentioned, which is you brought back your staff to the kitchen. You told them, I can't pay you a salary, but I will provide you with some kind of support. Are you able to share with us some key financial lessons that you've learned during this particular experience where you had to rethink how you derive a profit from your purpose and your passion, but still making sure that it's viable for the people around you? Are there tough money conversations you've had to have of late?
Yes, I mean, it's always difficult to talk about money. But however, I think I've developed a philosophy long time ago that actually helps me through life, through business, where I believe money actually comes and goes. Money will always come and go. And I always believe that money is not something that makes you live. Money is something that you use to accomplish and to achieve certain goals or certain projects that you're dreaming about, you know. So therefore, I find ways to make money. You know, I'm from Soweto. We grew up in the streets, and we always try to find a way to make money, whether it's playing soccer and like putting in R5 each and winning, and just learning how to make that money and using it in a way where you achieve more instead of just gathering it and keeping it there. So this lesson in particular has taught me that, you know, at the end of the day, as much as people do want a salary and people do want to make money, the reality is you just need enough to survive for your own essentials, for your own mental and physical health. And then the rest, I think, is just something that's put out there in the world for people to think you need to keep making more and making more and making more. And I think the more people actually understand that, I think you'll end up automatically making more money.
I must tell you, as someone who knows all about the world of celebrity shoots and as an observer from the outside, I thought you have your red sports car parked outside. You've got your lavish property that you've invested in on the Cape coastline. So this is really providing us with a fresh perspective as to how we need to view money. Is this something that you've always experienced, or are there particular experiences that made you shape and change this view about profit and how it needs to align with your purpose?
Yeah, so I think it's a series of certain things. Even at the age of 11 or 12 years old, I mean, I was in boarding school in Kimberley, and at 12 years old, I already had my own bank account. My parents were sending it to me via EFT, and I would then sort my financials out myself at the age of 12. So even by the age of 17, I really knew how to treat money and how to make money as well from money. So it's just this philosophy that I've always had, and it's something that I'm also trying to teach my business associates, my employees as well. And so we have the same philosophy, because the biggest problem is when people try to take a little bit too much and make a little bit too much. Greediness, and I think that ends up tarnishing relationships, business relationships, personal relationships as well. So just a different view about money and focusing on the passion and the purpose that you are supposed to do. And I think once you focus on that, then the money comes in automatically.
Great view. Ntsiki, I'm intrigued to hear what your perspective on profit and money is.
I agree with a lot of what Wandile has said. You know, Dr. Miles Monroe says that don't believe what they tell you. No matter what they say, none of the money in the world has disappeared. And there's definitely more than enough to go around, you know. And I think specifically around money with entrepreneurs in a space of transition and with women is to always be mindful about, you know, what your expenses are and what you would need at any given point in time. So for example, if you are transitioning from corporate to starting your own business, or for me, for example, transitioning from being a full-time entrepreneur to being doing my studies full-time and now going back into that space, it was having the foresight to say, okay, I'm going to need money when I get back after being away studying for a year. I need to start saving up. You know, I know these are what my expenses, I put money away so that when I get back, however long it takes for me to get running again, I know I'm taken care of for that period of time. I also think it's important for especially young people, you know, when you first get your first job and it's exciting to move to the city and you want to get your car and things like that, that it's okay to stay home a little bit longer. You know, I've had the beauty and the fortune of being able to stay with my parents, and that's allowed me to buy my first property and to pay off my car. And those are things I would have not been able to do had I moved out into the city when I first got a job. You know, so it's being able to manage what your goals are and delay instant gratification for greater gratification down the road, because you know what the opportunity cost is and you're able to adjust your finances to meet whatever that end goal is.
Very valid points, and especially in terms of the experience and the flexibility that it does provide you. Lisa, I'd like to get your thoughts on this one as well, in terms of the changing views that we have on money, and how what we're witnessing from both Chef Wandile and Ntsiki is that they're making their money work for them in different ways and in different methods, but ultimately it's proving to work to their benefit.
Look, I think one of the key lessons from COVID for me has really been we can actually all do with a lot less. And I think if we all come out of COVID understanding that, and actually understanding, I guess the old adage around your hand has to be open giving to receive, right, is pretty much what both of them are saying. That your passion, money will follow your passion, and you know that you don't need to pull the ring out of it. You actually, it's enough. When you've got enough, you've got enough. I think that, and that's very prevalent in the attitudes we're seeing in both consumers and in markets, actually, at the moment.
You're quite right. I do want us to start with our concluding remarks here, and sharing some insight with the audience as to how best they can learn some lessons from this in making sure that their profit and their purpose does truly intersect. And Ntsiki, I want to come to you here. You play a very critical role in terms of mentorship. So I'm hoping that you can interweave this into some of the feedback and suggestions that you can recommend to our audience. But how within the mentorship programs that you run, within the self-investment that you're pursuing with your studies, does this play a critical role in terms of finding opportunities where profit and purpose do intersect, and they can have favorable outcomes, not only for you as an individual, but for the people around you as well?
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of the times in our workshops or in one-on-one coaching sessions, people say that they struggle to find the profit side of purpose, you know, and I always refer people back to finding your sweet spot. So what the Japanese call ikigai, you know, so you make a list of the things that you absolutely love to do, and then you make a list of all the skills that you have. So whether it's stuff you're just naturally born talented at, whether it's things you're vocationally competent at, or you've gone to school to study it, just a list of things that you know, and then make a list of things that people are prepared to pay you for, and then make a list of things that the world needs. And somewhere there in the middle is something that you love, that you know how to do, that people need, that someone's prepared to pay you for. And you start doing that thing. And what I also recommend is that even within that thing, you figure out ways to pivot. So for example, as a speaker, I've realized the importance of having product. You know, so book, for example, gives you more credibility, but in situations where you're not able to speak, you have a product to sell. So don't just, whatever your sweet spot is, it can manifest in different ways, and figure out how that manifestation can look. And once you have an idea of what that is, find a mentor in that space. You know, there's other people who are there who've walked the journey and can give you that guidance. And as John C. Crosby says, that a mentor is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. So if you can find that person, whether it's within your finances or in your career or your personal life, that can help you sort of weave together where you want to be and help you find those blind spots and guide you on how to move forward, I think it becomes a lot easier to navigate the path of purpose and aligning it with your profits.
Very clear points there. Chef Wandi, I'm keen to hear what your closing remarks for the audience is. You've given us a broad overview of how you've really adapted and managed to pivot within these times of COVID. But I understand you also have a few other passions that you keep going, such as the wonderful artwork that's situated behind you there.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, the space where I am right now is actually our restaurant. And we have about probably 10 pieces of artwork here. And the idea was actually to change this art every month. So we've got an art curator who changes it every month. And the art is actually for sale in the restaurant. And we've actually sold over 100,000 Rand worth of art since August last year when we opened. And during COVID, as we stand right now, we actually closing a deal that's close to R1 million with a big piece that's of Winnie Mandela that's in the restaurant here. And this is during COVID times. And, you know, we only take 10%. So a big part of it is actually assisting artists. We have to assist artists. We have to performers, you know, people in the arts and hospitality industry as well, because as restaurants, we are allowed to operate right now, but, you know, imagine artists, how much they are suffering right now. So I think it's all about finding a balance and really assisting each other and having like a mutual beneficial relationship with everybody in every industry that is possible, and just assisting each other. And as long as we keep that mentality, I think in the future we'd be ready for anything, even if it's worse than COVID.
That's such a wonderful perspective that the both of yourself, Wandi, as well as Ntsiki, have highlighted, that whilst it starts with self and evaluating where your sweet spot is, you seek the necessary support, and then you also need to implement, but look at the bigger picture, the same way that you are doing, Chef Wandi, in making sure that your finances are not only taken care of, but you also speak into a broader purpose, a broader ambition that also looks to alleviate the individuals that come along with you. Lisa, I'm going to leave this one with you to give us our closing remarks, because clearly there's some lessons that we need to learn here that go back to key financial principles that we all need to implement in our lives. How do we find that? Are there new ways of thinking and, of course, reviewing our relationship with money to make sure that not only are our own personal needs taken care of, but that we also fulfill a bigger purpose of taking care of those that we love and care for?
Look, I think that the key piece of wisdom for me is really to make sure that that the person that's bringing the money, so the Wandiles and the Ntsikis, they are covered. There's no two ways about the fact that, you know, if Wandile was extracted from his business today, that they'd be in actual dire trouble, and the people who depend on them that they've spoken about so widely would actually be left with quite a hole. And I think that one of the key things that I've learned through this whole process and through my journey in financial services is that we used to think that the cornerstone of protecting your family and protecting your wealth was life insurance. But actually, we know now that people are living. You know, you have an accident, something happens to you, you actually survive it. The chances are that you are going to survive it. And so you actually need to really protect your biggest asset, which is actually you.
Protection of assets. I certainly think that we've learned quite a lot from today's Liberty BlueTable session. In terms of number one, starting off to understand that profit and purpose can intersect. They can coexist, and they both can be attained in our lives. How you actually manage to achieve it is also by reevaluating our relationship with profit and understanding that money can ebb and flow and change in different dynamics. Start by finding your purpose, by truly evaluating where your sweet spot is. Seek the mentorship that you need, but most importantly, as you implement these measures in your life, be cognizant of not only taking the right financial decisions for yourself as an individual, but also for those that you love and care for. Well, that's where we leave it for today here on this edition of Liberty BlueTable Sessions.